And to all of those attending this webinar, welcome to lunchtime in Canada. We haven't taken DRI and covered a bucket of water and let it sit there for an hour so we can get ready to toast our luncheon.
Webcam.
All right. So, good evening from Austria to all of the people in the world. I believe right now it is just midday in the North America and late evening in the East Asian side. So, all possible different times of days of greetings for the day to everyone. Now,
thank you. Good morning, good evening, depending on where you're logging in. Thanks to MMSteel for this opportunity. I am Bharat Roy, metallurgical engineer and worked in steel and steel-related operation for past 25 years.
Good day, everybody, or good night, based where you are. It's my pleasure today to be with you. My appreciation and thanks to MMSteelClub for inviting me. My name is Raed Siddiq. I'm the GM for the DRI plant, which is one of the Ittifaq steel product companies. Ittifaq Steel is one of the most integrated steel manufacturer in the area. It has.
Thank you, and thank you everybody for joining us, and thanks to MMSteelClub for inviting me. As mentioned, I'm a managing principal at SLR International. We're an environmental health and safety consulting firm, and I've been heavily involved in the steel as well as DRI industry for well over a decade. So again, I did have some slides if you want to go to the.
Take a look at DRI around the world in conjunction with the production that is shown on the screen. If we take a look at NAFTA in terms of its 119 million metric tons of production, there's very small amount of DRI being made. It's about 10%. So it runs around 10 million tons of DRI is being produced in NAFTA.
The money. So, of course, I know in the Middle Eastern, some of our colleagues use the blending of several types of iron ore to make the higher grade pellets. So, but we, from the side of Resiren, we are trying to actively promote and actively enhance the technology of magnetite reduction for last couple of years. So, as you all know, the best sources of magnetite so far come from LKAB in Sweden, the Swedish and some other companies. But however, there are several more advantages, and there are some untapped resources in the whole world.
With the new SDI mill, new core mill, and Big River expansion, the demand for DRI, HBI, and pig will keep increasing. US is one of the biggest importer of pig iron in the world, and there is not enough prime scrap in the market to satisfy all the demand when the steel market demand is high. And there is a distinction between prime scrap and busheling scrap. Prime scrap has a much lower copper content residual limits compared to busheling, which the copper could be as high as 10 to 15 copper.
As I believe. Keeping contrast on the last 2 years only, 2019 and 2020, we are seeing most of the time the price is fluctuating between $80 to $100 per ton for the iron ore. Expect from what happened in the last August 2019, and this is the second time where the price is shooting more than 100, which is make it very abnormal situation, as I can say.
Advance the slide, please. So from my perspective, I deal primarily with permitting and licensing new facilities, as well as doing compliance and any kind of legal support, litigation support for existing facilities. But from my perspective, the goal is to maximize the project's value by taking into account non-technical risks. So I don't know what percentage of copper is correct for your facility, but I do know that if the permit takes too long to get, or if the public doesn't accept the project as beneficial, you're going to have a very difficult time making that project successful.
very difficult time over the last 5 years, ever since the 2008 crash in the marketplace and so on. They had a hard time getting back. They got it back going pretty good last year at 80% utilization rate. But they're going forward now with the manufacturing sector being more selective, and they're going to have to be much more careful as a result of the COVID and so on. And you're going to see it. My best guess is that we're going to see more attention being paid to the quality of the products that they're making, which will then come back to the steel industry in terms of the tightening of the grades and the chemistries. And this is one big area where DRI fits in a big way in the NAFTA unit, with having a 62% electric arc furnace.
One thing, let's not forget that we are also importing busheling to US. And I don't think there is a big concern about the scrap market or the DRI at this 53% utilization rate. And if it gets back to maybe about 70, 75, then there could be, but I believe by that time Trinidad will be running. This is probably a short stoppage what in Trinidad, maybe a precautionary stoppage, or the government may have told them to shut it down for a brief period.
Well, again, I think it's in markets where the natural gas is very cheap, and Saudi and most of the Middle East is certainly part of that. In the U.S. has quite a bit of gas. I mean, you know, can't get rid of it practically. There's a lot of LNG projects on the table that are faltering, and the price of natural gas is sitting with a $1 handle. I don't know exactly where it is today, but you know, there's a lot of. I just think that sort of supply is going to drive the decisions of new investments. And so we're going to see a lot of natural gas power plants. We're going to see a lot of natural gas-based chemicals and plastics, and we're going to see a lot of natural gas-based steel processes.
And to some extent, India, of course, if you were thinking about magnetite pelletization, because if you have magnetite fines to make your pellets, your saving potential is enormous, of course. And even if you don't want to use 100% magnetite in your pellet feed, you can replace 30-35% in your high-grade pellet feed. That's one thing. And secondly, one thing I'd like to really touch upon in terms of the demand for DRI. So the countries which are going to be the next key players in steel making in the future days, in the future times, like the countries like Bangladesh, Myanmar, and they have a very interesting setup, a lot of induction furnaces, and there are a lot of electric arc furnaces, and this is something very interesting.
Okay, actually, as we see, the Saudi Arabia and the Middle East in general is having very promising market for the DRI. The current situation, most of the countries they are enough supplies, so the supplies is available there, and the potential markets also there. As we know, also on the other hand, regarding the scrap market, you know that it's not very mature market in Saudi Arabia, at least because of the ban of the export, which will make it more potential for most of the manufacturers to start focusing on their DRI plants. Market is very promising in Saudi and most of the Middle East. Today they are consuming about 40 million ton of DRI as an area. Maybe most of you know there is a potential new pelletization plant will coming in the coming 2 years. It had been announced by one of the major manufacturers in Saudi Arabia.